and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be checking out the all-new Transformers Studio Series Revenge of the Fallen Deluxe Class Sideswipe, and the sidearm version can move aside as there's definitely a new favourite in town. This guy is awesome. It's probably the best Sideswipe we've ever gotten from Hasbro and Takara Tomy, and this guy is more or less just a slight remold of his previous Dark of the Moon counterpart that we got released, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago now. Definitely quite a bit of time has passed since that figure did hit shelves, but this guy is just better in pretty much every way, especially where the paint is concerned. Now, the major difference as far as the mold goes is that this particular version of Sideswipe is of course the Transformers 2 version, which had the hard top instead of the convertible, so we do have a slightly different look for the vehicle mode, but they've also made major modifications to the paint, which honestly, upon first glance, you would easily be forgiven for actually believing they were brand new components, such as the head sculpt and torso. You can see that this time around, it just looks so much better. The original version was just merely a grey plastic. This looks epic. I love the silver paint they've got going on here for the crest and the amazing amount of detail as well as paint that's going on here for the faceplate. This really does look excellent. I cannot fault this piece at all. The blue for the eyes looks great. The main torso region too is very similar to the Dark of the Moon release, although this time we've got so much more paint going on here. This really does look fantastic. You can see the actual Corvette logo there has been painted, which looks fantastic. You've got all of this amazing mechanical and sculpted in detailing for the torso. The same can also be said here for the biceps, and they have in fact actually painted the forearms, which highlights some details which perhaps you may have missed on the original Dark of the Moon version. As we work our way down to the lower region of Sideswipe, they have opted to go with a slightly more gunmetal motif, which I actually think works in the figure's favour, and you can once again see all of that amazing sculpt detail, which really does look amazing. As we turn here to the side, you can see some differences in regards to the backpack. Of course, we'll go into more detail later on when we bring the old Dark of the Moon version out for a comparison, but this actually stays together and compresses a lot better than I initially suspected. And you'll also notice, more so when we get him in vehicle mode, that all of the rims this time are also picked out in a nice silver, something which was a glaring issue with that original DOTM figure. But overall, I just think the Revenge of the Fallen version is by far the superior release. It looks great in pretty much every single angle, and honestly, I'm really unable to fault this. Now, as far as articulation goes, this version has got a ball joint here at the head, which can look up and down, as well as, of course, rotate left to right. We get a fantastic range of motion here out the ball joints for the arms, so these can move around in pretty much every way you want. We get a very stiff rotation here at the bicep, as well as a 90-degree range of motion here at the elbow. Full waist rotation, albeit slightly compromised due to the backpack, but honestly, that's a pretty decent range of motion as it is. The legs can kick forwards that far, as well as back to about that far. Of course, you can do the splits, rotation here at the thigh, 90-degree bend here at the knee, and then a lower section, I imagine, where the ankle would be, which can also bend, and sadly, no form of ankle rocker pivot, but you can once again see some amazing looking details. So really and truly a fantastic looking figure. Now, in regards to accessories, this particular version does come with the same amount of weapons that we got with the Dark of the Moon release, so we do get the blades here, which attach onto the sides. This time round, they've been cast out of, once again, that darker gunmetal grey, which I think looks excellent. You can see some of the amazing internal detailing there, and of course here on the sides, they've been picked out in a lovely silver, and we still do surprisingly actually get his blasters. Now, these do store slightly differently here for the Revenge of the Fallen version. The sculpt is exactly the same. They are missing some gunmetal here, but if you have the DOTM release, I imagine that you could just take those and use them for this particular version. These are supposed to store in the actual inside section of Sideswipe. Now, this can be rather finicky to get to. You sort of have to extend that back panel out, and then the blasters do just peg into that region, compress this up, and that is essentially your weapon storage for Sideswipe's guns in robot mode. But definitely a very cool looking figure. Here for that Studio Series Sideswipe size comparison shot, you can just see the marked improvement in regards to the paint that the new Revenge of the Fallen version has. It looks excellent. I also wasn't a huge fan of the mismatch of colours that we got for the thighs on that original Dark of the Moon version, and you can just see how much more paint we've got going on for the face sculpt. It really does look as if though this is a complete brand new piece, but I can assure you it is the exact same piece, however just painted so much better. And the same can also be said here for the torso. Look how much better this particular region looks when in comparison to the old DOTM release. Just such an improvement. You can see as we spin here to the side the differences in regards to the kibble management. I will say that I do prefer the posability on the Dark of the Moon's door wings when in comparison here to the Revenge of the Fallen. They can be rather finicky to actually pose around, but I think the backpack for the most part compresses pretty well. You can see how they are essentially the same sculpt, just with that brand new section here at the back. But if you were to choose out of the two, two, then the Revenge of the Fallen one, I think at least, would win hands down, and the Dark of the Moon version was actually quite elusive to obtain, so for those who perhaps missed out on this version, don't worry in thinking that perhaps you're going to get a slightly inferior release here with this Revenge of the Fallen release, as to me, this is by far the best one we've ever gotten from Hasbro. Here for some ROTF Deluxe comparisons, we've got the all-new Sideswipe compared to some of his wave mates, so we've got the ROTF Bumblebee re-released for this particular wave, as well as of course the new Studio Series Jolt, which if you haven't done so already, I would highly recommend that you check out the review, but he fits in really well with these guys, and quite honestly, I think there's only the Fallen and Sideways to actually go before our Revenge of the Fallen cast is completed, so they're definitely chomping away at some of these Michael Bay characters, so perhaps in some ways it's good that they're slightly slowing down with these live action movie releases, as we could have potentially been completely done with this line towards the end of this year if they haven't decided to introduce the 86 subline. Clear a path, because the transformation is about to begin. For the most part, it's identical to the Dark of the Moon version, so you are going to want to remove his blades here and then just take the wrists, collapse them here into these hollow cavities, of course, come to this back region, lift this section up, and then that will allow you to bring all of this down, and we can just begin unfolding all of these components. So these silver tabs are going to fit underneath the windscreen, just like so. We can then come down to this lower region, but before we do that, check out all of that amazing back detailing that honestly you just would not see in robot mode. That's such a nice attention to detail in my opinion. But come here down to these lower sections, of course, just unfold the wheels, collapse them upon the sides, and then just fold these sections in upon themselves. So just snap that into place. We can then join these two pieces together and then just bring the front section of the vehicle forwards so that we've got something which looks roughly along the lines of this. Straighten up the waist joint. We can then come here to the back, and you're going to want to separate this chest unit from the main torso. Now this can be rather difficult to do, as it does require a bit of force to actually detach it. You can see how I am struggling quite a bit, and of course I don't want to break the figure, but you are supposed to just pop this section here forwards, pull that over the top section of the head, and then extend these pieces out, as this entire rear piece is actually going to come over the top. So fold this here forwards, just like that, until it clicks into place. And then what we can proceed to do is take the arms, just collapse these sections down, straighten that torso section back up, and then here with these, straighten them out until they are aligned up appropriately with these pieces, and then just collapse that there over the top, snap that into place, and repeat the exact same process. Snap that there into place, and then we can just come to these pieces, fold these up and over. You are actually going to utilize the bicep joint for this, so just bring that up and snap that there into place. So we've got something along the lines of this, and then for some of the final steps, it's just making sure that these panels are roughly aligned up with these door wings. And then you can see we've got a slot there that's actually going to peg into that transparent tab. So compress that and then just snap all of these tabs together, making sure that everything stays in pretty much one piece, and then bring in the side blades. And what we can do with these is just align that up there, and then that tab. And you can see we've got this huge slot that's going to peg into that slot in the thigh. So also snap all of that together, spin here to this side, and lock all of that in, and there you've got the Revenge of the Fallen Sideswipe fully transformed up into his really, really awesome Corvette Stingray hardtop alternate mode. Bring in Sideswipe, clear a path. I actually think this here looks really, really impressive. The Corvette Stingray that Sideswipe attained in Revenge of the Fallen has probably always been one of my favourite cars from the entire Michael Bay movie lineup, and I've got to say that this figure for the most part looks excellent. There is one area which is pretty inaccurate to how the original car looked in the film, but we'll touch base more with that later on in the video. I actually want to bring out the Dark of the Moon version for a comparison sooner, just to show you the main differences, so you can see that they have actually changed quite a lot. I didn't realise that they did in fact completely resculpt this entire front section, so we now no longer have these intakes here. You can see that we of course have got the roof, which just completely alters the look, and we no longer have this back plate with the spoiler attached, and you can also see the differences in regards to paint. It looks so much better now that the rims are picked out in silver. That was something which was a glaring missed opportunity here with this particular version, and I really have no idea why they didn't pick these out in silver, as it does definitely look rather ghastly when in comparison to the amazing metallic that we got for the entire body of the vehicle. But I'd love to know down in the comment section below, out of the two, which is your favourite in vehicle mode. Of course, for robot mode, they're pretty much identical, but for vehicle mode it really does look different, and I personally really love how the ROTF version looks. Now, speaking of something which they missed, this particular version of Sideswipe is supposed to have the front headlights. Now, for Dark of the Moon these were scrapped, but for Revenge of the Fallen he definitely had these. Now, it could be down to the simple fact that this region does break up for transformation, and maybe it would have looked slightly unsightly, or just probably it wasn't worth their time to actually retool this. With that being said, it's not a massive issue, and of course they have made the modifications to the biggest and most noticeable areas, but I would have loved to have gotten some tiny headlights, even if they'd just been picked out in maybe like a lighter shade of white or a lighter shade of silver, just so that we could have seen that they were there. But other than that, you can see the vehicle mode does look fantastic, incredibly sleek, really elegant looking, and as mentioned before, in my opinion, one of the best vehicles to come out of the Michael Bay lineup. You can see here the rims all picked out in silver, and it just allows you to appreciate some of those details that perhaps went missed on that original version. You can see here for the front, the Corvette logo picked out so nicely, and you can just see the reflectiveness here to the silver paint. From a side perspective, it looks excellent, and here from the back, for the most part, it looks pretty decent. Sadly, these exhausts are just cast out of that gunmetal grey, and it would have been nice if they could have painted these in silver, but other than that, I think it's excellent. Surprisingly, this does actually roll a lot better than the Dark of the Moon version. So for my DOTM release, this section here had a tendency to actually scrape along the ground, meaning that this here really and truly wouldn't roll all that well, but this version definitely does roll a lot better, which ultimately just adds to the simple fact that this is my favourite version. And so, some final thoughts here for Transformers Studio Series Revenge of the Fallen Deluxe Class Sideswipe. If you haven't guessed so already from this review, I think once again this is another great entry into the line, and was really one of those variants that we needed, as of course his ROTF look, especially in vehicle mode, was a major departure from what we got with the Dark of the Moon release. And as mentioned before, the DOTM Studio Series figure was actually quite difficult to obtain, I know, in many parts of the world. So to actually get this guy re-released, here's hoping that the collectors who missed out on that Dark of the Moon version are able to get some form of this mold into their collection, and the better version in my opinion. I think this guy looks so much better in robot mode, especially where the paint is concerned. The head and the torso really does look upon first glance as if though it is brand new, but it is merely down to the use of paint, and it just shows how sophisticated they've become in actually applying paint to smaller areas on figures. I think that the robot mode looks great, it's always been a solid mold, but with the modifications just is even better. I do love the modifications that they've made to the vehicle mode to get it near enough spot on to how the Corvette Stingray looked with the hardtop in ROTF. It's personally my preferred look for the vehicle, which is probably why I'm so impressed with this. Setting some of the inaccuracies off to the side, such as the missing headlights, I think the vehicle mode is really well done, much like the robot mode. I love the metallic silver that we now have got for the rims, and it's super awesome to see that they have actually packaged in all of the same accessories with this guy, and that they haven't decided to leave the guns out. So definitely this guy gets a high recommendation for me. For those who are hardcore completionists of the SS line, you have to pick this one up, and I'd really love to know down in the comment section below, out of ROTF and Dark of the Moon, which version of this Studio Series Sideswipe is the one that you want for your collection, and which one do you ultimately think is the best. I thank you all for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.